listening to episode 69 of Mitolife Radio. I'm your host, Matt Blackburn, and today, by popular demand, an entire episode about water. I'll mostly be focusing on drinking water, but I'd also will talk a bit about bathing water and just my thoughts about water in general. And like the supplement field, the waters have been muddied, pun intended, as far as misinformation and even disinformation. And so everyone's confused about what water to drink. And coming from the raw vegan world, I got exposed to a lot of nonsense because there are characters out there that have written books on raw beauty and raw food and cacao and all this stuff, and they're on stage and they sound believable. And then there's a spring water pitch. Like, spring water is this magical, mystical, it's going to give you levitational qualities and it's anti-aging, when in fact it's the exact opposite. It's not going to levitate you, it's going to pull you down into an early grave. Kills you faster. And so spring water is not ideal. I'll be getting into that. And I used to believe it was. And people have all sorts of opinions about what the best water is, which I'll get into. So I guess the best place to start would be where I started with water. So like the omega-3 scam, like the resveratrol scam, all these scams, I fell for all of them. But I went through them and came out the other side wiser. So I used to go to wells to collect water. And being down in Southern California, I really think there's like one or two springs or maybe more that are just hidden and people don't share them. And so nobody knows about them, which isn't helpful. But with wells, those are almost as good because it's coming from the earth, and these aquifers can be hundreds and hundreds of feet deep. It's not just surface water. And so it depends how deep they drill for the well. So when I was down in Southern California, in San Diego, I would go to Carlsbad, and that's where I would get my water from the Carlsbad well. It's unfortunate that I learned that they actually mix in filtered water with it, and so they cut it. They cut the well water with filtered water. So a lot of water is advertising. Usually it's not face-to-face deception. Usually it's buying it at a store in a bottle, and you see an artesian well, and it says artesian well water, and legally they can lie to you, and it's actually filtered water. So there's no regulations as far as what a company puts on the bottle to say, this is this. That is really unfortunate and adds to the confusion and really harms people's health. And I really think this connects to the whole Corona deal, because everyone's freaked out about this virus, yet they're drinking bottled, filtered tap water that's barely even filtered out of a plastic bottle that's likely been sitting in the sun or in a hot truck, and they're drinking phthalates. So you want to talk about a suppressed immune system? You want to talk about being vulnerable to, I don't care, XYZ virus? Just drink crappy water, and you'll be sure to lower your immune system. And that's most of the population, unfortunately. And I don't see it as a luxury thing to be able to afford a water filter. And I'll get into that as I go about talking about my journey. So when I was working 3 jobs and going to school full time and just working my butt off, I never skimped on my health. I always went the extra mile. And that included driving 4 hours round trip to small homesteads to do a private transaction for raw goat's milk. And I did that for several years straight. And I was drinking up to a half gallon a day pretty consistently for a while. And the same thing with water. At one point, I was spending $2 a gallon for well water, and I would lug it in my small car and fill up enough for a couple weeks. and just keep going back. And people thought I was crazy. It's like, why are you putting so much energy into these things? Why are you putting so much energy into water, especially? It's just water, right? Well, water is not just water. It's actually your blood. And so the quality of the water that you drink determines the quality of your blood and the quality of your coffee, of your elixirs, whatever you're brewing, your teas. The quality of the water is the base. That's the most important part. And most people forget that. They just focus on the herbs or the coffee, the quality of the coffee. If the water's subpar, then your coffee is going to be a subpar. And I'll talk about the synergistic effects of pristine water with coffee near the end of this episode. So I know I'm getting a lot of teasers here, so I'll just get to the point. So did well water for a while, and then I discovered hard water and calcification and started looking into that. And then I got into distilled water, which is a whole rabbit hole. There are people that are fanatical about steam distilled water. They say it's the best. If you're going to go for filtered water, people say, do distilled. And although that's better than tap, although it's very, 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 very aggressive, it is better than tap, in my opinion. Some people would even say that tap is better for you because at least it has alkaline buffering minerals in it, whereas with distilled water, you're pretty much drinking straight acids with no alkalizing buffering minerals in it. So it's very, very aggressive water, even though it's not full of hard minerals or rocks. So this whole concept of drinking rocks is a good thing to contemplate. And that's really what got my wheels turning in my brain was, wow, I'm accumulating these microscopic rocks. And how you know that is you buy a little TDS meter. I've been talking about this for like 7 or 8 years now. You buy a TDS meter on eBay, and the brand doesn't matter. They're all pretty much the same. I got the light blue one. It's like $13 US. And you measure the parts per million in total dissolved solids. And that doesn't even show you all the information about that water. It's just a snapshot of one aspect, just one aspect of the quality of your water. And I would say it's the most important aspect, but there are also other aspects that are very important with your drinking water. So you can measure the TDS, and if it's over 80, that's considered hard water. Some people would say over 100, but to be conservative, and if you're into living to see your grandchildren and living a long time, under 80 parts per million is ideal. And then that's just knowing one piece of the information. There's also if there's acids in the water, and there's other important things to consider. So I got on the distilled thing. I started with a mega home distiller, a couple $100 on eBay. It's the most affordable one, tons of plastic. It runs through plastic, a little post-carbon filter that's supposed to catch VOCs. And it's steam distilled, right? It's how the rain does it. And there's a lot of arguments that that's the most natural water for humans to drink, steam distilled, because it's what nature does. But we have to ask, what would humans drink back in the day in ancestral times? Would they have been setting up tarps and collecting rainwater? Maybe in an emergency, but that sounds like a lot of work to me. I wouldn't have done that myself if I was there. I don't believe hundreds of thousands of years, because I don't believe the earth is that old, only a couple thousand. But if I was back there, I would have gone to springs and creeks and rivers, right? Especially springs, because I could definitely taste the difference. It's pure. It's coming right out of the earth. You know, there won't be animal feces in it. It's filtered. I just go for springs, right? Water that's coming out of the earth. I wouldn't collect rainwater. So people assume that spring water is still good. But you go to these springs, and there's this website, Find a Spring, which I was obsessed with for a little while. And people always reference that website. Oh, you could find a spring, get natural water. That's cool and fun if you're traveling. And I think it's important to kind of connect with your environment, whether it's eating the flora and fauna or drinking the water in that environment. Sure, it's not going to kill you and everything's contaminated, everything's subpar, whatever. But I'm talking about in this episode, day to day, every day, your daily water, right? Not when you're traveling. This is like your everyday drinking water. So if you look at these pipes that are coming out when you visit a spring, they're rusted. They are fully rusted out. And what's that? That's iron. And it's inorganic iron. And when that gets into your body, it is the primary cause, not sugar. It's the primary cause, iron, excess iron in your body. Primary cause of, and this is well documented, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, heart attacks, dementia, Alzheimer's, aging, wrinkles, everything. Memory loss, fatigue, depression, anxiety, marital problems, have arguments with your partner, might want to look at iron, might want to look at water, might want to look at how that's affecting your brain, how it's affecting the astrocyte cells in your brain, how it's affecting the electrical activity in your body, how it's complexing with omega-3 polyunsaturated fats, all that omega-3 DHA, maybe fish oil, algae oil that you took in your life, complexing with that iron, creating lipofuscin, acrolein, all these aldehydes, these really toxic PUFA byproducts that I talk about a lot in my podcast and on Instagram and my Facebook posts. So iron is like throwing fuel on the fire. It is very, very inflammatory, and it feeds lots of pathogens. And so that's why I say that distilled is better than tap, in my opinion, because at least you're cutting out all the iron. But people never think about the acids. And so I'm very grateful for the people at Pristine Hydro. I met them several years ago when I was living with my parents, and I was on an extreme budget. And somehow I stumbled upon this place. I don't even remember how. Someone recommended it to me online. I walked in there and got the download and started integrating basically their protocol, which the foundation of it is drinking real water. And to try to explain to someone what real water is it's like the movie The Matrix. Like, it's breaking through that dreamlike state, that trance, that fog. And like Neo in The Matrix, there's a throw up moment. There truly is. What do you mean there's no water? What do you mean there's no food? It's everywhere, right? Food and water everywhere, right? No. That's a really, you want to talk about the red pill. That is it. If you can really, really understand that, then you got it. And it's not a doom and gloom thing. It's not a defeatist, nihilistic mindset. It's a realistic mindset. You're connecting more with the reality of what really is happening here on planet Earth. So there's no food and water. And I'll put the link below to the lecture that really breaks it down. Glenn Calkins is on stage. It's an old video. Hopefully it never gets taken down. Someone should probably download it and mirror it just in case. But it's about 10 minutes or so of the founder of Pristine Hydro that I mentioned on stage. This is from many, many years ago, like over a decade ago, talking about what water is. And really, water should be, and it's very logical, contaminant-free, acid-free, and then what should it have in it? It should have bicarbonate salts, calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium, bicarbonates. And these buffer acids. Where do we get acids? It's not what people think. It's not sodas and acidic food. And no, it's actually car exhaust. It's acid rain. It's living in a city. Have you ever noticed that when you're in the city, you have to drink more water? It's because you're getting more dehydrated, because you're breathing all of these corrosive acids, concentrates, sulfuric and nitric especially. And these are created during the burning of fossil fuels for energy. Basically, the Industrial Revolution, industry, all these factories, they create gases that go up in the atmosphere and create acid rain. And I've been in many online debates with people, even recorded on podcasts, about this issue. Spring water fanatics, spring water promoters, and they're either aware of it and they don't think it's a big deal, or they completely deny that it's a problem. And it is real. I remember in science class, earth science, when I was teaching that at a juvenile detention facility years ago, it was in the books, but it was just like a section or a page. It wasn't a whole chapter or half the book like it really should be. It wasn't the focus. It was just one little section. And maybe we'd make a little, in school when you'd cut out paper and, make a poster out of it, a little presentation on acid rain. It's one of those kind of deals, right? And you just forget about it. But what effect does acid rain have not only on the rivers, lakes, and animals in the wild? What effect does it have on human physiology? This is the scary part, because you'll hear mixed things from the EPA. Totally bogus, right? 3-letter agency. Totally bogus. You'll hear different things about acid rain, like it's a big deal and it kills crops and vegetation and all these animals and reduces biodiversity, completely destroys fish from a body of water. And then you'll read something else, oh, not a big deal, from the same people, right? So that this is where I'm talking about the disinformation and misinformation. No wonder people are confused, because even the authorities are confusing you. You get what I just said? Even the authorities are confusing you. That's why I believe that we're in Satan's world right now. And until Christ returns, that is the only thing that will bring this whole thing around. But it's really the reality of the situation. These acids are very, very corrosive. If they're eating your car, what are they doing to your bones? Right? You ever seen the paint peeling off of a car? You ever see rust in your bathtub and your sink? You ever question, like, hey, I'm guzzling spring water. What's happening inside of me? If it's doing this to my bathtub, what's it doing in my body? And I've done posts about, there's prominent doctors out there that are promoting a heavy seafood diet, like Quantum Health, which I did that lifestyle, but then combining it with like San Pellegrino or Gerolsteiner, like really, really hard spring water. That is a recipe for Lipofuscin. If you had to combine 3 things to get age pigment faster, this complex PUFA, these age spots, progressive lipofuscinosis, here it is. It's eat a lot of seafood diet, high omega-3s, cold water fish, lots of cold water fish daily, salmon, sardines, fish roe, oysters, just slamming them daily. And then cooking in the sun, sun gazing, cooking your eyeballs, your retinal pigmented epithelial cells. That look up RPE cells, Lipofuscin, PubMed, check that out. In sunlight. So you have iron, PUFA, sunlight. Iron, PUFA, sunlight. We know that iron and PUFA makes Lipofuscin. We know that UV light spreads Lipofuscin. I'm not just making this stuff up. This is in the clinical literature. But like I always say, you'll never see a study that says, Matt was right. The PUFA diet plus spring water equals Lipofuscin, and that will cause degeneration of every cell in your entire body. You're never going to see a study like that, ever. So don't wait for it. Don't hold your breath. We have to connect the dots ourselves. Just like I said, the authorities are not telling you the truth. Do you think they're going to spell it out in a freaking study? No, they're not. So if you see someone like on the Mediterranean diet and they're cooking in the sun like a lobster, and they're taking, fish oil or algae oil, and they're drinking hard water that's full of iron, spring water, full of acids, iron, and excess calcium, causing calcification, then let them know. Let them know what they're doing. And it's possible that they'll deny it. and say, oh, that guy's crazy, whatever, he doesn't know what he's talking about, whatever. And fine. I don't try to save anyone, right? That's Christ's job. So I just share information so that you can look into it. And water is one of those things. What are you trying to sell me, right? Okay, where's the sales pitch, Matt? What are you trying to sell me? And that adds confusion because I need to make a living too. It's how I keep this show running. I can't run this show for free. I have to pay the internet. I have to pay for the home, the lighting, electricity, all this stuff, right? It costs money. And so there's a lot of layers to break through. If someone's in a poverty consciousness, poverty mindset, then they're going to automatically have a block. And I just kind of go the other way from those people. I don't have the time or the energy or the interest to try to break through that barrier because it's not worth it for me. But for people that this makes sense to, and you've listened to my other shows and you know what I'm about, and I always say, do what you can. If it's Sprout supplements, do the best you can, right? You don't have to use my discount codes. You don't have to buy my Mitolife products. Do what you can. Start where you can. I lived with my parents for years, and I worked my butt off to get out of there. And I bought this Pristine Hydro system on PayPal credit, the travel system, and it changed my life. I'll just fast forward to that story. So I get home. It's a 2 to 3 hour drive from the shop, 5 to 6 hour round trip. I just drove there by myself because I wanted the download. It made sense. It felt like I was Neo going to Morpheus in a way when I left, and my life was changed forever. My message was changed forever. Everything was changed forever with this new understanding. And I didn't even get into the NPK fertilizer piece where I was referencing that there's no food here. That's a whole nother aspect episode. That's a whole episode. I'm just focusing on water for this one, which is just, let's say, half of the red pill. So I buy their travel unit. I get home. I hook it up in my parents' bathroom right to the sink because that's the only faucet that it would connect to. And I was like, I have to have real water. I have to have real water. And it was just like, I knew I never drank real water my entire life for 25, 26 years or so. That was a huge, huge, huge light bulb moment for me, especially drinking the water, because it started to wake me up. And I don't talk a lot about financial health on this show. I might in the future, but I started to wake up financially, started to get more creative, started to decrease my hours with slave jobs where the managers were treating me like garbage. Started to increase my confidence and actually start my own business, start my own selling things, even under the table, whatever, selling it to family and friends, doing what you can, getting creative, creating value so that people can pay you for that value. That's the system that we're in. And it's just what it is. And I truly believe that water helped me specifically in that area to get more clear on what I was here to do and how I'm going to do it. Because the quality of your thoughts really depends on the quality of your blood. So there are some really intelligent people out there drinking spring water or well water. There are really intelligent people out there that are full to the hilt, full to the brim of calcification and lipofuscin. But are these people going to come up with real solutions to our problems? And that's the key phrase, real solutions. And I'm not on my high horse. I'm not bagging on people. It's just what it is. If you understand the effect that calcification and lipofuscin, excess calcium, intracellular calcium, and lipofuscin in the cells, if you have an idea of what that does, decreasing oxygen and not allowing ATP production in the amount that it should. And let's add taking zinc supplements and depleting copper, or taking ascorbic acid, like toxic liposomal ascorbic acid supplements. That depletes your copper, guys. What's copper dependent? How about cytochrome C oxidase, CCO, red light therapy, third cytochrome? No copper, you have calcification, you have lipofuscin, you're done. You're toast. Good night. It's over. But you can reverse this. That's why I designed the CLF protocol, and water is the cornerstone of it all. Because if you don't have real water, then all the devices and all the supplements and all the vitamins and minerals and enzymes, they all work in certain pH ranges. And this is beyond alkaline water, because there's a huge multi-level marketing scam out there. Alkaline water ionizers, right? And usually people that come from carbon block, like the little dinky filters you'll see at Costco. None of the Costco filters are good, by the way. None of the filters you'll buy in the store, period, are good. You have to get it online. But a lot of people will go to the carbon and then jump right to the alkaline ionizer. And the reason for that is because I believe their brain is calcified like a stone, like a rock, and they can't think logically. And so they hear the sales pitch that's very convincing about acids and about, water activation, and it's going to help your body work better and all this stuff, all this jargon. And they drop 2, 3, 4 grand on something that gives them acid-free tap water. And then they say, oh, you can clean your NPK fruits and vegetables with the acid wastewater. Like you should be eating vegetables in large amounts anyway that suppress your thyroid and metabolism and cause hypothyroid. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense at all. So alkaline water ionizers don't reduce the parts per million at all. And I measured that in San Diego. My friend brought one to the house. I measured the parts per million from the tap before and after. It didn't change. Same with the Berkey filter. Any of those gravity filters, it's good for a SHTF scenario. Everything goes down. It's great. Sure, keep one in your closet. Keep one in your bug out closet. Great. But that's not your primary water, guys. That's emergency water. They're different. So people either go, carbon block, gravity filter, take out the fluoride. That's not the most important thing. Think about this. Calcification causes fog, like matrix style fog, just like fluoride does. You got that? So everyone's worried about sodium fluoride in your toothpaste and in your drinking water. It's fluoride, fluoride, fluoride. That's not the biggest deal. The excess calcium, the hard water, the over 80 parts per million water, that's causing brain fog, just like fluoride is. And in fact, I would say it's a deeper brain fog. I would say it's worse than fluoride, in my opinion. Because your body can deal with fluoride. It can deal with halogens if you're drinking contaminant-free, acid-free, bicarbonate-rich water. It can handle some toxins because the quality of your blood is healthy, right? It's not immunosuppressed, which PUFAs cause immunosuppression, inorganic minerals in solution cause suppressed immune system, leukocytosis, white blood cell count goes up. This is the Mayo Clinic. This is real information. It's just not talked about. So with water, the hardness is important, and then taking the acids out. And so if you look at like a reverse osmosis system that you would find in like Costco or whatever, for one, it's not enough stages. It's usually only 4 or 5 stages. That's not enough. You need more than that. And it's taking all the contaminants out, or most of them, or a lot of them, 95%, let's just say. It's definitely not 99 to 100%. 95% of contaminants, that's the best it'll do from a store-bought filter. And then 2, it's leaving all the acids in there. And so people are going, just like vegan and carnivore, they're going to opposite extremes. So they're either going no contaminants, or they're going contaminants plus acids, or contaminants and no acids. You get what I'm saying there? They're going to opposite extremes. They're either doing alkaline water full of hard rocks, drinking rocks, or they're going the opposite way, drinking RO water that has little contamination, but full of acids. So this Pristine filter I have on my website. I have tons of YouTube videos on their products. it takes out all of it. And it's the only filter I've found that does that. I don't know of any other water filtration company that does what theirs does. And I've interviewed people that talk about, John Ellis machines, and they're getting these really, really complex, there's so many. If you've been in the natural health field for a while, you've seen all the quackery. There's just amazing quackery out there. You have that machine, you have deuterium depleted water, which may or may not have relevance or effectiveness, but it's like priorities. And this is actually a big part of the episode that I wanted to highlight. It's about priorities. How much is your blood worth to you? Think about that. You haven't drank real water for your entire life. Might be 35, might be 40, might be 60, might be 70. One of my biggest pleasures in life is to hand an elderly person a full mason jar of freshly made magnesium bicarbonate in liquid form, or just a full glass of water. That's one of my biggest pleasures in life, because I know for a fact they've never had real water up until that point, that one moment. And there's something about that really lights me up. So, priorities. I notice in the natural health field that people often start at the skyscraper level, or they go multiple floors up instead of starting at the basement, the foundation. Water, drinking water, bathing water. Again, you could take all the supplements in the world, you could do all the detox protocols, heavy metal cleanse, blah, 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 and you're bathing in LA tap water, bathing in San Diego tap water, Seattle tap water, Austin tap water, New York tap water. You're drinking hard water, 400 parts per million, 500 parts per million, acid filled. You wake up with pain, your back, your knee. You have headaches, it's magnesium deficiency. You have joint pain, muscle pain. That's the acids, corrosive acids. And of course, there's multiple factors. I'm not saying I know it all. I'm not saying that is it. But it's a huge piece. It's a huge piece for everybody. People like to talk about bioindividuality, but last time I checked, every person has a kidney. Every person needs water. Every person runs on sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, right? Everyone needs these electrolyte salts. They run the electrical potential of your cell, how nutrients flow in and waste products flow out. It's the foundation. And if you don't have real water, all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the enzymes, they're not going to work the same. We have buffering systems in our body, and one of the biggest ones is the bicarbonate buffering system. And the bicarbonate ion, just think of sodium bicarbonate, baking soda. Remember in school, you mix baking soda with vinegar, and you get the volcano, the explosion? A lot of people are doing that. They're doing raw ACV and baking soda to start their day. These detox warriors. That's not good. That's not good. Because what you really need is magnesium bicarbonate. You know what makes you loopy? Delusions of grandeur. What makes you fall for certain philosophies. I see this a lot in the New Age community, in the spiritual community, just falling, always searching, always confused, spinning their wheels. It's magnesium deficiency. And guess what? Doing 32 ounces of magnesium bicarbonate isn't going to fix it. It takes years to reverse the deficiency, because it's not serum. It's not serum. It's RBC magnesium in your red blood cell. And that takes time. And if you have stress still in your life, that magnesium burn rate is through the roof. So it's going to take even longer. And you might just be spinning your wheels because you're not taking enough. That's most people. Oh, I take magnesium, Matt. You're not taking the right form. And number two, you're not taking enough. That's like 99% of people, period. I can say that as a fact. So this is stuff that I learned over the years. I had Morley Robbins on my podcast, I think 4 times. He's a mentor, colleague, friend. I think he's a genius. He's really consolidated a lot of this information about the 3 most important minerals, as he says, all you have to focus on: magnesium, iron, copper. Magnesium, iron, copper. Just focus on those. You'll make some progress with your health, whether you're already relatively healthy or whether you're trying to come back into balance from some type of ailment. So I got on this water. I became more clear. I just kept drinking it every day. And especially in heat and hot climates, hot and dry climates, it totally saved my life. I was on the road driving a lot as a taxi driver, and I would always bring it with me. And this is something that really boggles my mind, how people leave the house without a water bottle. And some people call it a fad. Some people say, there's all sorts of things out there. They say, you shouldn't bring a water bottle with you. You don't need to drink that much water. Look, I hold a piece of glass in front of my face. There's fog there. That's dehydration with every breath. This podcast episode, I'm talking for like an hour straight. I'm dehydrating with every breath. That means that I need to put water back in. And yes, the mitochondria will make water. And if your metabolism is running optimally, your cells will make more water. If you have carbohydrates in your system, and animal protein, and everything's running properly, you generate water in your body. That is true. But that doesn't mean you don't have to drink water. That to me is insane. And for someone that leaves the house, like most people, to go to their job, whether it be their office or on the road or whatever it is, I would bring at least a half gallon. And I would say just a gallon if you're gone for 10, 12 hours a day or however long. If I ever left the house and I didn't know how long I was going to be gone, I'll bring at least minimum 1 full gallon of water, because I get this question a lot. Matt, what do you drink when you travel? Nothing. Only Pristine Hydro. Yeah, I'll have a sip at a restaurant and say, oh, that, this tap water tastes especially metallic or whatever. And that's mainly for to tame my neuroticism about health, because I like to challenge myself sometimes by doing stuff like that. And so I'll take a sip of tap water if I'm at a restaurant, just to kind of break through that barrier. But usually at that restaurant, I'll have a bottle with me of the pristine water. And let's say worst case scenario, I don't for whatever reason, then yeah, I'm going to drink, carbonated water in glass. And most likely it's hard water. And if I did it right, in my pocket or in my bag, like I always keep with me, I would have the Pristine Hydro little packs of magnesium or their electrolyte balance. And I would toss a pack. I would say, hey, can I get a San Pellegrino that's cold, refrigerated, or even with ice? And I'd pour a little in there, and at least I'm balancing out the mineral ratio by adding a ton of magnesium to that chock full of calcium hard water. But in most cases, I bring the Pristine Hydro travel system with me. It's in a briefcase. I don't care if it's extra fee to check it in on the plane. It's totally worth it. And they call it the water revival system, which I think is accurate. It's more than a filter. It's a water revival system. And this is always the system that I point people to. If you can do the under counter, that's awesome. If you own your house, you want to have a permanent system, you just want to go all the way and have the best for your house, or you're renting on a semi-permanent basis, then the under counter is definitely the way to go. But like a lot of people, if you're in an apartment, if you're on the go a lot, if you move a lot, just get the travel system in a briefcase. And people like to, talk about the expense. The travel system is the same quality of water as the under counter. The only difference is you have to replace the filter media inside more often, just because they're smaller filters. But you get the same exact quality of water. And on the product page, it says produces 1 gallon approximately every 15 minutes. So it depends on the flow rate. And at first, it seems intimidating. When I first set that up, when I was living with my parents, it was intimidating. But it's plug and play because that travel system comes with an adapter. It's already all set up where you just connect it right to your faucet, right to the spigot. You know, like in your kitchen, you have the spigot, and have you ever twisted that off, either in the bathroom or the kitchen? And most of them, if it's standard, they have the same fitting. And you just wrap some water tape around it, plumbing tape, just to make it watertight. Screw that on, flip the switch, and then you put the spigot on the actual filter where the product water comes out of. You put that in your jug, and hopefully it's a gallon, or even 3 gallons or 5 gallons. The bigger, the better. And here's where practicality comes into play. If you're at a hotel and it depends how long you're going to be there, then choose what style water. For most people, the 3-gallon, like glass water bottles, is good. Or you can just fill up straight in your water bottle. And I use the purest water bottles. My friend Matthew told me about those, and I've been loving them. I think they're the best water bottle on the planet. And that's the thing about water. It's like you can go so far with it. The purest water bottles, I've dropped them and they just bounce. It's aluminum housing on the outside, or steel, excuse me. But the inside is actually coated in quartz. And so the water is only touching glass or quartz, which is ideal. Water and glass is the best. It's just quartz is made of silica. And so the problem with acidic water is whatever you put it into. Like, for example, people will see me drink out of copper drinking vessels, pure copper. If there's acid water going into that, it's going to eat at the bottle. And if that's glass, it's not really a big deal because you're getting silica, which the body can handle, even in not if it's not the optimal form. But in the copper, I would say you could probably get copper toxicity, especially if the liver has Lipofuscin and it can't make the ceruloplasmin enzyme to make the copper bioavailable. Then yeah, I wouldn't drink acidic water out of a copper vessel. Generally, glass is the best to go with the drinking water cup. So just wanted to go into that because there's a lot of confusion with that too. You just want to stay away from Nalgene. I see prepper YouTube videos. I watch a lot of that, and you know, these tactical people, and they're talking about Nalgene, guys. What are you doing? BPA free, BPS free, doesn't matter. It's plastic, guys. Endocrine disruptor. What are you doing? Doesn't make sense. If you want something light and indestructible, go for copper, but only put Pristine in there. Ideally, you have the purest water bottles, and they make a 32-ounce one that I use very often. So back to the travel system. If you're using it at home, the best way to do it, I did this for years, get 2 5-gallon glass carboys, like for brewing beer. And it takes a long time to fill it up and put it, if it fits in your sink or in your bathtub, because it will overflow if you forget about it. That's really the hardest part with this whole system, is it's best to be near it when it's filling up. If you're in the kitchen making stuff, that's ideal. But I've flooded the kitchen many times because it was just sitting on the ground in the kitchen and not in the sink or the tub or whatever. So that's not a problem if you're next to it, if you're watching it, but it takes a while. Like, it could take about an hour to fill up 5 gallons. Again, totally worth it. You're spending pennies instead of tons of money on water. You don't have to, like I did, I used to drive to water stores. I forgot to tell that part of the story. I used to go to water filtration stores. And if you search water store your city on DuckDuckGo, the internet browser that doesn't track you, you can find these water stores. And a lot of the time, the filter will be the size of a room. That's when you know you found a good water store. And those are usually in bigger cities. But if you can't find that, then the second way down would be just a water dispenser, like in front of like a health food store. Those usually have the best ones. And they put a sticker when they replace the filters. So I always tell people it's about doing your best, but I would not skimp on water, and that's your blood. And so just investing in a travel system, even like I did, PayPal credit, which they offer, that's the way to go. And it'll totally change your life. It's definitely the place to start with health. I get a lot of messages, Matt, what should I buy on your website? All the things you recommend. It's this. This is the number one thing, because you can do all the other therapies, but again, you're drinking hard acidic water, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. And I just want to circle back to priorities for a second, because I came from the New Age community and thankfully, by the grace of God, returned to Jesus Christ. I can speak from experience with esoteric and health, and this is actually a really concerning area right now, because there are a lot of people that are waking up to a lot of what's happening, the control grid, the prison planet, whatever you want to call it, but they don't have the foundation in Christ. And so they're very open to being deceived by basically demons. And where does this connect with water? Well, people will tell you, just putting happy words like gratitude on your glass bottle is going to imprint, good vibrations in the water. Dr. Emoto told me so in his experiments. Or, there's a crystal vortexer that's, $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever, that I'm going to pour the water through, and it goes through these crystals and vortexes, and that's structured water. Right? You'll hear all these sorts of things. And it's really harmful because it's not teaching people about the foundation, which is having clean water. So there's a misconception that you can have dirty water, hard water, acidic water, and make it better by adding stuff to it, whether it be coated colloidal silver, or I don't care if it's Aja Clarity, whatever it is, adding something to the water is supposedly going to make it better. That's pseudoscience, bro science, ridiculous stuff. You have to start with the clean base, and that's pristine water, acid-free, contaminant-free, bicarbonate-rich water. That's the starting foundation. If you're not there, then whatever tea, whatever coffee, whatever you do to it, adding mineral drops, you're not taking anything out. Does that make sense? Because this filter, it has to go through, under pressure, these membranes. Very specific type of filtration media from specific companies that this company found and put together in a specific configuration that works. And the last two filters, or the last filter, is actually quartz and amethyst, and then it vortexes it. And so this filter will actually vortex and spin the water, which does mimic nature, because water should vortex in nature, and it should run over quartz and lodestones. That's another awesome aspect to this filter that I love, that other filters don't integrate. So it's like bringing the water back to life. It's actually changing the electrical activity of the water, especially given that lodestones I have a book on lodestones. They're amazing. This company actually sells little lodestones you can have. Definitely better than holding a cell phone in your hand. Multiple poles around these lodestones. It's magnetite that's been struck by lightning. I have an old YouTube video actually on the beach holding it when I used to be a sun worshiper, but it's still valid, still accurate information there. And it's a little earth battery, and it's running your water through this permanent magnet made by lightning. What other filter does that? None. And again, it's the last stages. It's not the first, it's not the only stage, it's the last stage. It goes through two different deionization steps to remove all the acids. And no other RO filter does that. So if you buy a reverse osmosis system, people think that's what this is. It's not. It's different. A reverse osmosis system will not take out the acids because it doesn't have deionization and these specific deionization filters that this uses. So I brought up coffee, and I know in the beginning I promised I would talk about that. So what about the acids in coffee, Matt? You drink coffee every day. You know what you're talking about. You're acidifying your body, Matt, with coffee, the acids, right? And I used to do coffee enemas, so I know the whole spiel. I know both sides of the argument. That's why I started this podcast. I can talk from experience. Why do people do coffee enemas? It's for the acids. Those acids that ride the hepatic portal vein to your liver and cause some type of a detox reaction. And there's validity to that. I think now it's extreme. I don't promote or recommend enemas except in food poisoning situations, which I think they're very valid and effective. But how about chlorogenic acid? You ever looked that one up? Palmitic acid. There's tons of different acids in the coffee. And Adam Bergstrom actually wrote a great ebook. All of his ebooks are great. Definitely go over and support his work, solartiming.com. He wrote, I believe, 10 books on omega-3s and the omega-3 barcode, PUFA, poisoning. I think you could buy them all for $99. Definitely worth it. Tons of references. And I always point people to his work when they ask me for proof. Believe it or not, coffee is protective against a lot of different things. Iron especially, which is what makes PUFAs really toxic, is iron overload. Because coffee will actually decrease your iron absorption. So coffee in a steak, coffee with any iron-containing food, or after an iron-containing food, really good idea. You don't have to be neurotic about it. You don't have to do it every time. But just knowing that coffee inhibits iron absorption, that is amazing. And what I do is I take Shilajit with my coffee. So I have pristine water with the bicarbonates, which I believe works synergistically with the coffee. The bicarbonate ions are very alkaline, right? And there's acids in the coffee, and it doesn't create like a volcano reaction, but I feel less stimulation from coffee when it's made with pristine water. Where if I have coffee out from a shop, I usually get the jitters. And I believe it's because they're using basically tap water or very, very hard water in it with acids in it. And so it's harsh on the body. And I'll take Shilajit with it. I put in some MC2 oil, which is basically coconut oil without the PUFA. Even though there's barely any PUFA in coconut oil, I still eat it. It's just nice to get zero PUFA sometimes. But it's not a big deal. You can do coconut oil. And heavy cream or milk, frothed milk or heavy cream. And I'll usually use like Alpha Dynamics mushroom extract powders, like 3 grams of reishi or cordyceps in there, just little packets. And maple syrup. Have to have the sugar in the coffee. And always coffee after breakfast. And you don't have to be as neurotic about what you eat, because people see me eating sandwiches and eating, Matt, you eat gluten? And just being weird about, it's really orthorexia when we break it down. It's really orthorexia. It's obsessing about your health. We've come to a place where people are so obsessed about health that they become unhealthy. And we can't be neurotic about every little thing we put in our mouth. Let's just switch that instead for water. That's a lot healthier, because you can truly control the water that you drink. But as far as food, which I'll get to in a further episode, we don't have much control. Unless you're growing your food in a greenhouse, not under the open sky, with pristine water, without store-bought soil, with worm castings, which have fulvic acid, with peat moss, which has fulvic acid, and you're doing some stuff right to get some real food, then sure. But most people aren't in that situation, or they don't have the motivation to do that. So how about water? Just hook it right up. It's a 5-minute install or less, and you have control now over your blood. Now, I didn't get into bathing water. So this is another journey, very similar to my drinking water journey over the past decade of trying different filters. Of course, I started with the $30 one from the health food co-op down in San Diego. Rain shower or something, can't remember the name. And is it better than nothing? I guess, but when the water's hot, if it's just a simple carbon filter, like just 1 kDF, it's going to be deactivated with one hot shower. So that's something to realize. Like getting a cheap shower filter, one shower deactivates it. So on my Matt-Blackburn website, I have my recommended shower filter up there, and it's from Pristine. So it's a dual KDF shower filter, and it's a little bit investment, not nearly as much as the water filters, but that's even higher priority than the drinking water filter, because we do absorb water through our pores, through our skin. And if you're showering in tap water, guys, I don't know what to tell you. You're in the matrix. Do you want to get out of the matrix? Stop showering in tap water. You're not thinking clearly if you're showering in tap water. And again, this is not a holier than thou thing. I'm just speaking from experience. And if you're showering in hypochlorous, haloacetic, hydrofluorosilicic acids, chloramine, you're not playing with a full deck of cards. I'm sorry. You're not. And you are more susceptible to the medical mafia, pharmaceutical cartel and their tricks and their spells and their snake-like seducing trances. Bathing water, guys. Ever think about showering in fluoride? Now you're going to think about it. This filter removes a lot of the fluoride. Dual KDF on my website. Really important stuff. Again, I don't care if you use my discount code. It helps me. If you do, helps support the show. Discount Blackburn. That's most of the things that I recommend. And yeah, just wanted to share my experience here on the show with water, because it's so overlooked and underappreciated, and people will spend thousands and thousands on devices and gadgets and supplements, detox protocols, liposomals, and they're not drinking real water. And the same people selling that garbage is promoting spring water or alkaline water to you. That's a red flag. When someone's promoting spring water or alkaline water ionizers to you and selling liposomal, ascorbic acid supplements, omega-3s, detox, snake oil pitches, you got a question. You got a question. That's the biggest red flag for me. What kind of water is this educator promoting? A lot of educators know about this system, and they still promote spring water or alkaline ionizers. It's sad, because they're just playing to a certain market that is under the spell, and they believe that garbage. They don't believe that iron overload is a problem. They don't believe that acid rain is a problem. But it is. And it causes mental turbulence, psychological imbalance. It truly does. We're talking about electrical activity, guys. Electrical activity of your neurons, of your brain cells. Think that's important? Do you think the quality of your thoughts determines the direction of your life, where you sail your ship? I think so. So I didn't even go into, which I will now, the electrolyte balance. And this is where a lot of people start, just buying the liquid. And they sell a 16-ounce already made magnesium bicarbonate liquid. It's the only liquid form of magnesium. And that's where a lot of people get caught up, because do the other forms have validity? Like, as I've spoken to Morley Robbins about, absolutely. Do they work? Absolutely. Are they natural? No. The only natural forms of magnesium, natural meaning you could find it in nature, or used to be able to find it in nature, as in this case, bicarbonate and chloride. That's it. And chloride, you wouldn't be guzzling in your drinking water, you'd be getting it transdermal in the ocean. But the bicarbonate, that's no longer in your water. And so again, I'll put the link below if you want to listen to that lecture. I'll put where to start because it's like an hour long, but there's just a little segment that I want you to listen to where it just breaks it down and just contemplate it, see if it makes sense. And if you just bought the electrolyte balance liquid, that's awesome. That works really, really well with my CLF protocol. But they also sell the electrolyte balance powder. And if you get that with the travel water revival system, that's really the combination. So you get the water revival travel system with the electrolyte balance powder. It's that jar there. And it's 90 servings. So you could literally make 90 bottles in your soda stream, your carbonator. And I have YouTube videos on this. If you go to my YouTube channel, I'll put the link below, Matt Blackburn YouTube channel if you search that. Or Matt Blackburn Magnesium on YouTube, it'll pull up. And I show how to make it. And I actually talk about the differences between the liquid and the powder. And I've been talking about magnesium for years. It's the overlooked mineral. If you're looking at Morley Robbins' work on magnesium, he has a lot of hours of interviews on YouTube and even on my podcast here. If you haven't listened to the Morley Robbins interviews, definitely do that. Especially the first 3 are very, very helpful. If you're just going to listen to one, just do the first one, and that will change your life. And it's so broad acting. I mean, magnesium, 42% of the enzymes in your body are magnesium dependent. 42% are magnesium dependent. And what depletes magnesium? It's not sugar, not carbohydrate, like everyone says, because your body can actually recycle magnesium if you're not stressed, aka you're not restricting sugar, right? But if you're restricting carbohydrates, the primary fuel of the body, you bet your butt you're stressed. You are stressed. Even if you can't feel it. Elevated cortisol and adrenaline, free fatty acids coming out into the blood, lipid peroxidation byproducts, throws you off on every level, psychologically especially, not thinking straight. Remember, PUFAs accumulate in the brain, the heart, the liver. Brain, the heart, the liver. The brain. What happens when you sleep? The lymphatic system. You have a brain washing. That doesn't happen properly if you have lipofuscin. Autophagy doesn't happen if you have lipofuscin. So I have blogs on my website, matt-blackburn.com. You can read my CLF protocol. I'm constantly updating it. I'm just connecting the dots, guys. I'm just connecting the dots. I don't know it all. I'm always learning. I've kind of marketed myself as someone that admitted they're wrong, which is kind of like a no-no in this community because people write books and they're the raw food guy and they can't eat meat ever, or they can't admit that, a supplement they promoted, they learned, even though there's 20,000 studies on it, that it's not good for human health. Like in my case, omega-3 DHA. That's the sign of character. If you could say, hey, I didn't look into the research on acrolein and lipid peroxidation and yellow fat disease, and see that these PUFAs oxidize immediately in the body. Rancid oil, schmancid oil, doesn't matter if you take a perfectly preserved, cold pressed, just produced in the factory in China or Canada, or the biotech lab that has human blood in the DHA supplement, in the algae oil. and it's GMO and there's human blood in it, and it's totally hybridized, it's totally poison, and it's perfectly preserved, doesn't matter, because it goes in your body and you get lipid peroxidation immediately. You get the same effect as if you just had a ton of beers. Aldehydes. It's a slow, drunken process. You get drunk long term from having PUFAs oxidized in your system. Very, very similar products. They're pretty much identical to alcohol, ethanol. So, stuff to think about, and I hope this episode helped you. You only have to replace the filters once a year. Forgot to mention that. They sell different filter kits. I would say get the complete filter kit if you can, and it's just a peace of mind to have a kit just on hand so that you don't have to, if the internet goes down or whatever, I guess you have to worry if you have water pressure at that point to run the filter, but still, just having a year ahead of filters is a good peace of mind. So check out my website, matt-blackburn.com. On the front page there, I have all of my recommended products, and I'm constantly updating this site, adding to it. And my brand, Mitolife.co, are all of my products. Just released a K2-7, so it's a vitamin K2 in the MK7 form. That's metaquinone 7. And the key is to get it past the liver. So you can do aged cheese, you can do natto, but are you eating enough to not only fill your liver stores of K2-7, but get it extra hepatic, get it throughout the body? Most people are not. And so this is a mitochondrial fuel, K2-7. And especially when you have vitamin E, I have my PUFA Protect with MCT oil at a very affordable price. $30 if you use the discount code first time for any of the Mitolife products. And yeah, people have been giving rave results on this protocol. Fat soluble vitamins, who would have thought, right? A, D, E, and K, but it's not A and D that you need. If you're on an animal-based diet like you should be, eating tons of animal foods, red meat, raw dairy, or even organic grass-fed dairy, do the best you can. But where are you getting your E and your K2? Those are usually missing pieces. And I've said it before in other episodes, polyunsaturated fats, like seed oils, vegetable oils that you were raised on, and then the omega-3s that you supplemented because some doctor told you it was good for your brain. They didn't tell you it causes Alzheimer's. They also didn't tell you that it increases the requirement for vitamin E by 6 times. That's in the clinical literature. So vitamin E therapy is real. It's been used in Canada. There's some awesome books on it, mostly for heart, cardiovascular stuff, but it also has effects on the liver, brain, the immune system, tons of stuff. So also want to say, if you use the discount code Blackburn with any purchase at livepristine.com, you'll save 10%. And I have a 30-minute YouTube video actually talking about the Pristine filter. It's probably a lot of the same stuff I said in this episode, maybe slightly different. I think I go a little more into the acid rain and stuff, but I'll put that link below as well. If you're curious, it's like an unboxing video I did. And that's it for today's show. Think about water, drinking and bathing. Today's quote is by Tom Petty. Take back your insurance, baby. Nothing is guaranteed. Take back your acid rain. Let your TV bleed.